Two alien fleets cornered a human mining ship. Then humans broke physics. The United Earth mining vessel Hephaestus was not a ship built for glory. It was a massive, ugly, slab-sided brick of industrial steel, ceramic plating, and exposed coolant pipes. It smelled of ozone, stale synthetic coffee, and the metallic tang of welding grease. Captain Sarah Miller sat in the command chair, which was really just a repurposed hydraulic forklift seat bolted to the bridge floor. She was staring at the tactical display, rubbing her temples. "Let me get this straight," Miller said, her voice gravelly from exhaustion. "To our port side, we have the Valkyrie hegemony, 30 dreadnoughts, all gold plating and decorative wings, armed to the teeth with antimatter cannons." "Yes, Captain," replied her first officer, a lanky man named Jenkins who was currently taping a loose panel back onto the console. "And to our starboard," Miller continued, "we have the swarm of CH-Thun, 200 bio ships that look like angry space ticks, weeping acid and sporting enough organic railguns to turn a moon into gravel." "That is accurate, Captain, and we are in the middle. Precisely in the middle, ma'am." Miller took a long, slow sip of her lukewarm coffee. "And why haven't they turned us into cosmic dust yet?" "Because," Jenkins said, checking a blinking monitor, "we have 12,000 tons of pure, unrefined Null-Matter in our cargo hold. If they shoot us with standard weapons, the resulting detonation will erase this entire star system from the map. They both want the cargo, but neither wants to trigger a supernova-level explosion. So, they're in a standoff." Miller sighed, leaning back. "They're waiting for us to surrender to one of them, so the other can attack. They've jammed our FTL, haven't they?" "Completely. Gravity wells are locked down. Hyperspace lanes are flooded with tachyon noise. We can't run. We can't fight. We're a fly trapped between two windshields." A light blinked on the console. A high-priority communication was piercing through the interference. "Put on the main screen," Miller ordered. The screen flickered to life, splitting into two feeds. On the left was High Admiral Vax of the Valkyrie hegemony. He was a tall, avian being with iridescent feathers and a chest plate polished to a mirror shine. He looked at the Hephaestus with the kind of disdain a noble might show a pile of wet trash. On the right was Overhive Shra of the CH-Thun. Shra was a mass of clicking mandibles and wet, compound eyes. A translator box translated its clicks into a buzzing, genderless voice. "Lesser biped of the Sol system," Admiral Vax began, his voice dripping with aristocratic boredom. "You are trespassers in the Gilded Expanse. Surrender your vessel and its cargo to the hegemony. We will grant your crew the mercy of a quick death or slavery in our orbital gardens. Refuse, and we shall find a way to bleed your ship dry without detonating your cargo." Shra's mandibles clicked furiously. "Flesh meat of Earth. The swarm claims this bounty. Surrender to us. We will digest your consciousness into our hive mind. You will live forever as data within our biomass. If you surrender to the feathered pretenders, we will dissolve your ship and your bodies while you still breathe." Miller stared at the two terrifying, godlike alien entities. She looked down at her coffee cup. Then she looked back at the screen. "Is that it?" Miller asked. "Death, slavery, or being eaten by bugs. Those are the options." "You are a mining barge," Vax sneered. "You are a primitive, sublight industrial accident. You have no weapons, no shields, and no escape. You have no options. Give us 10 minutes to discuss it with the crew," Miller said flatly. "You have 5, Vax replied, and both screens went black. Miller sat in silence for a moment. Then she keyed the internal intercom. "Chief, you there?" A burst of static preceded a frantic, high-pitched voice. "Asterisk. I'm here, Cap. I'm currently under the primary reactor with a pipe wrench and a prayer. What do the overlords want? Asterisk. They want us to surrender, die, or get digested. Arthur, tell me you've got something. I need a miracle." and I needed to break every rule of engagement in the book. In the bowels of the ship, Chief Engineer Arthur, Sparky, Chun wiped a smudge of grease off his forehead. He was surrounded by flashing neon screens, humming magnetic coils, and several crates of highly illegal, experimental human technology. "Well, Cap," Arthur said, a manic grin spreading across his face. "You know how the Department of Defense told us we were never allowed to activate the gravimetric shear array outside of a laboratory setting because it violates the laws of Einsteinian physics?" Miller rubbed her temples again. "The one that causes spontaneous local causality collapse. That's the one," Arthur chirped. "I've been tinkering. If we use the Null-Matter in the cargo hold as a catalyst, and we network our automated mining drones into a dodecahedron configuration around the ship, we might be able to create a little bubble. A bubble where the universe stops telling us what to do." Miller paused. "Explain that to me like I'm a tired mining captain, not a quantum physicist." "Right. Normally, mass tells space how to bend, and space tells mass how to move. That's gravity. That's physics. What I want to do is use the Null-Matter to tell space to take a hike. We're going to invert the relationship. Instead of moving through space, we're going to make space move around us. But because the Null-Matter is raw, negative density stuff, we're going to invert mass itself." "And what does that do?" Miller asked. "It means standard physics goes backward," Arthur said, his eyes gleaming with mad scientist joy. "Force equals mass times acceleration, right? If mass becomes negative, everything flips. Pushing something makes it come toward you. Shooting something makes it go away. It's going to turn this sector of space into a non-Euclidean fever dream. The aliens won't be able to hit us, because to their computers, we'll be mathematically impossible." Miller smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. "How long to set it up?" 4 minutes to deploy the drones. 30 seconds to spin up the reactor. "Do it," Miller said. "Jenkins, open a wideband broadcast to both fleets. I want them to see this." Out in the void, the Valkyrie dreadnoughts and the Sich-Thun bioships sat like predators poised to strike. They watched as the ugly human mining ship did something very strange. Dozens of small, yellow automated mining drones drifted out of the Hephaestus' hangar bays. They didn't flee. Instead, they took up positions in a perfect geometric sphere around the ship, locking into place with magnetic precision. On the bridge of the Valkyrie flagship, Admiral Vax scoffed. "They're deploying mining drones? Do they intend to drill through our hulls with industrial lasers? How pathetic. Prepare the tractor beams. We will seize the ship the moment the timer hits 0. On the Ch-Thun hive ship, the overhive felt a ripple of amusement through the collective consciousness. The primates were building a cage for themselves. The 5-minute timer ticked down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. "Captain Miller," Vax's voice boomed over the comms. "Your time is up. Surrender the Null-Matter." "You know, Admiral," Miller's voice came through the speakers, sounding suspiciously relaxed. "Humans have a saying. We don't like being told what we can and can't do. Not by kings, not by gods, and definitely not by the laws of physics." "What are you talking about, primate?" "Chief," Miller said. "Break it." Deep in the engine room, Arthur slammed a heavy physical lever downward. The Hephaestus shuddered. A low, subsonic hum began to resonate through the hull, so deep it vibrated in the teeth of every crew member. On the external sensors of both alien fleets, reality began to melt. The Null-Matter in the cargo hold was flooded with a massive, high-frequency graviton pulse. The matter didn't explode. Instead, it turned inside out. The mining drones outside the ship flared with a blinding, violet light. Beams of energy connected them, forming a glowing, three-dimensional web around the Hephaestus. To the eyes of the aliens, the human ship began to blur. It didn't move, but it began to smear across the visual spectrum. One moment it was there, the next it looked like it was a mile long, then a mile high, then compressed into a single, infinitely bright dot. "Target that vessel," Vac screamed. "Fire kinetic slugs." Now, the Valkyrie dreadnoughts opened fire. Massive, city block-sized railgun slugs, traveling at a fraction of the speed of light, hurtled toward the Hephaestus. In any normal universe, the mining ship would have been vaporized. But as the slugs hit the violet web of the drones, the laws of motion ceased to function. The slugs didn't impact the ship. They didn't pass through it. As they entered the field, they slowed down, stopped, and then began to curve. They followed the contour of the violet bubble, orbiting the human ship like tiny moons. The negative mass field was bending the trajectory of the kinetic energy itself. The slugs circled the Hephaestus 3 times, picking up speed, and then shot backward toward the Valkyrie fleet. "Incoming projectiles!" A Valkyrie bridge officer shrieked. "That's impossible. Those are our own shots." Vax roared. The Golden Fleet scrambled to raise energy shields, but their own railgun slugs, now imbued with the inverted gravity of the human ship, smashed through their defenses. 3 Valkyrie dreadnoughts were sheared in half by their own fire. The CH Thun were equally bewildered. The hive mind unleashed torrents of bioacid and organic plasma. Tens of thousands of glowing green spheres of corrosive death flooded the space toward the humans. When the acid hit the field, the chemistry of the universe itself seemed to lose its mind. The acid didn't burn the ship. The negative mass field stripped the electrons from the chemical bonds. The acid turned into a harmless, glowing mist of neon pink oxygen and inert nitrogen. The plasma bolts cooled instantly, freezing into floating, glowing spheres of solid light that drifted lazily in the void like Christmas ornaments. "What are they doing?" Shra screamed through the psychic link, causing 1,000 hive warriors to seize in agony. "They are rewriting the truth. Space is not flat. Time is bending." Indeed, time inside the bubble was getting weird. On the bridge of the Hephaestus, Captain Miller watched the sensors. On the screens, the movements of the alien ships were jerky, like a film skipping frames. "Chief, how's the field holding?" she asked. "The Null-Matter is eating the ship's power like a hungry toddler, Cap. But the local frame dragging is working. To the aliens, we are traveling at several million miles per hour. To us, we're sitting still. And because we've inverted the mass constant, their weapons are adding energy to our battery." "Wait," Miller said, leaning forward. "Their shots are charging us." "Yup. Every time they hit us, the kinetic energy is absorbed by the field and converted into electricity. Keep shooting us, boys. We're running the air conditioning for free." Miller looked at Jenkins. Jenkins looked at Miller. "Jenkins," Miller said, "broadcast to both fleets. Tell them we appreciate the jump start, but we really must be going." Jenkins grinned and flipped the switch. "Attention, hegemony and swarm." Miller's voice echoed across the theater of war. "This is the Hephaestus. Thank for the target practice, but we have a delivery quota to meet in the Sol system. Since you blocked the FTL lanes, we decided to make our own highway." "You cannot escape," Vax screamed, his voice cracking with panic. He could see his fleet being torn apart by their own redirected fire. The tachyon net is absolute. No warp drive can engage. "Who said anything about a warp drive?" Miller asked. She keyed the intercom. "Arthur, pull the trigger." "With pleasure, Captain." Initiating the non-local slip. Arthur didn't engage a faster-than-light engine. Instead, he dumped the entire charged energy of the alien attacks into the Null-Matter core all at once. If you push an object with positive mass, it moves forward. If you push an object with negative mass, it moves backward. But if you push space itself with a negative mass anchor, space doesn't move. Space collapses. The mining drones pulsed one final, blinding time. A massive tear, glowing with the colors of a dying star, opened directly in front of the Hephaestus. It wasn't a wormhole. It was a puncture wound in the fabric of the dimension. The Hephaestus didn't accelerate into it. Instead, the universe behind the ship expanded, while the universe in front of the ship ceased to exist. The ship was pushed out of reality entirely. In a fraction of a millisecond, the Hephaestus was gone. The violet web collapsed. The drones, their power spent, drifted dead in space. But the collapse of the field left a vacuum in the space-time continuum. Nature, as they say, abhors a vacuum. Space rushed back in to fill the hole the humans had punched. The resulting gravitational whiplash was catastrophic for the two alien fleets. The Valkyrie dreadnoughts were sucked into a massive, swirling spatial whirlpool, their beautiful golden hulls crumpling like tin cans as they collided with each other. The HFY bio ships were pulled into the same vortex, their organic carapaces crushed by the tidal forces of a space-time continuum trying to heal itself. Within minutes, where there had been two of the most powerful armadas in the galaxy, there was only a massive, silent field of twisted metal, frozen chitin, and drifting debris. No weapons had been fired by the humans. No shots were aimed. The fleets had been undone by their own weight and the sudden, violent protest of a reality that had been bent too far. 5 light years away, in the quiet, dusty outskirts of the Sol system, space suddenly hiccuped. The U.S.G. Hephaestus popped into existence just past the orbit of Pluto. The ship groaned, its industrial frame creaking as it readjusted to normal, boring, three-dimensional physics. The bridge lights flickered, then stabilized. Miller sat in her chair, gripping the armrests. She blinked, looking out the viewport. The familiar, icy blue light of the distant sun was visible. Status report. She coughed, her lungs burning from the ozone smell. Jenkins, whose hair was now standing on end from the static discharge, looked at his console. He tapped it a few times. We are 5 light years from where we were 10 seconds ago, Captain. Damage. The cargo hold is scorched, and the Null-Matter is completely inert. It's just normal, heavy lead now. The mining drones are gone. The reactor needs a total overhaul. But the hull integrity is at 80%. Life support is stable. He paused, looking at his tactical readouts. And the aliens. Long-range sensors show massive gravitational anomalies back in the mining system. It looks like they crashed into each other. Hard. Neither fleet is in any condition to follow us, or do much of anything, for a very long time. Miller let out a long breath she didn't know she was holding. She slumped back into her hydraulic chair. Arthur, she said into the intercom. The response was a cough, followed by the sound of something heavy falling over. Asterisk, yeah, Cap. Asterisk, don't ever do that again. Asterisk, come on. We made it home in record time. I think I just invented instant teleportation. Asterisk, you turned the ship into a mathematical equation. Arthur, my liver feels like it's inside out. Asterisk, that's just the subjective temporal dilation. It wears off in a day or two. Mostly. Asterisk. Miller shook her head, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. She looked at her lukewarm cup of coffee, which was still sitting in the cup holder. She picked it up. To her surprise, the coffee was now hot, piping hot, as if it had just been brewed. She looked at Jenkins. Jenkins looked at the coffee. Negative mass, Jenkins whispered. Thermodynamics went backward for a second. Your coffee got younger. Miller took a sip. It was perfect. Tell Earth High Command we're home, Miller said, leaning back. Tell them we have the cargo, and tell them if they want it, they're going to have to send a towing vessel. Because the next person who turns on an engine on this ship is getting thrown out an airlock. The Galactic Council chamber on the neutral station of Primus was silent. High Admiral Vax, now wearing a simple gray robe, his once brilliant feathers plucked and dull, stood before the council. Next to him was a surviving sub-queen of the CH Thun, her clicking mandibles quieted by heavy sedatives. The council consisted of 12 ancient races, none of whom had ever seen an empire as powerful as the hegemony humbled so quickly. "Explain this report," the council head demanded, gesturing to a massive holographic playback of the incident. "You claim a single, unarmed human industrial barge destroyed 2 grand fleets without firing a single weapon." Vax looked down at the floor. His voice was hollow. "They did not fight us," Vax said. "They ignored us. They treated the laws of the universe, the very constants of reality, as if they were mere suggestions. When we fired upon them, they did not deflect our shots. They made our shots hate us. They turned our kinetic energy into their fuel. They turned our chemical weapons into festive gases." The council head turned to the human representative, a woman in a business suit named Secretary Miller, no relation to the captain. "Secretary," the head said, his voice trembling, "your species was discovered less than a century ago. You have barely mastered fusion. You were considered a level 2 civilization. How did a mining crew manage to manipulate the fundamental topology of space?" The secretary shrugged, looking bored. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "Look," the secretary said, "you have to understand how humans work. For thousands of years, we lived on a rock with active volcanoes, hurricanes, and plague. We survive by being stubborn. If a mountain is in our way, we don't climb it. We blow a hole through it. If the ocean is too deep, we build a tube and drive through it." She looked at the admiral and the overhive. "You call a violation of cosmological law. We call it standard industrial problem solving." Captain Miller's crew was cornered. They were tired. They wanted to go home and have a beer. And when a human worker is tired and wants to go home, you do not stand in their way. She leaned back, a small, terrifying smile playing on her lips. "Because if you do, we will find out what else the universe is made of. And trust me, you won't like the answer." The council was silent. No one ever challenged the human mining territories again. And in the dark, dusty corners of the asteroid belts, if you listened closely on the subspace frequencies, you could hear the humans laughing and the clatter of duct tape as they continue to break the universe, one rusty bolt at a time.